Hey guys, I want to talk to you today about skipping steps in training. We find all too often when we're working with clients at our facility, once the dogs have learned the actual behavior, they've acquired the behaviors, and the handlers have been working with them for a little bit, they will always come back to us with the question of, why is he not coming back when we call him? You know, we took them to the park the other day and we let them off leash, and they could have been maybe 3-4 weeks into their training, and they can't understand why he took off and didn't come back when called. He saw another dog, maybe a squirrel, and decided to keep going and ignore them. And we'll ask them various questions. One of them may be, you know, was he properly controlled? Did you have either your long line on him or did you have your e-collar? You know, the tools that we use to keep training controlled. And sometimes we'll hear, nope, we didn't have those things on him. We thought he'd come because he's done all this training. And I usually explain to people that with training dogs, it takes, like people, a minimum 21 days to form a habit. And so with that said, we have to keep in mind, did we put in a lot of time during the week? Were we consistent with our training? I mean, all these things are factors that will influence behavior. And we have to be honest with ourselves. If we know we lead a busy lifestyle, you know, work, kids, other commitments, then we have to factor that in and say, okay, you know what, when we take him to the park, we're going to keep it controlled. We're going to put him on his training line, or maybe we'll go to a tennis court where it's enclosed, and that way we don't run the risk of the dog taking off and leaving us. It only makes sense. I mean, we have to be fair to the animal. We can't get upset with them if we're not putting in the time. Training works when we work. And that's a very important thing to remember. Skipping steps and trying to get to the end is something that we find many people want to do. They want to cut corners, shortcut it. And unfortunately, when you're working with dogs, that can't happen. They require a lot of time in, a lot of practice, and perfect practice. And the big word is consistency. We have to be consistent with the method. If we're not, then we can't blame the dog. When the dog doesn't behave accordingly, we have to look back and think of what we're not doing right. Because usually the dog's behavior is a direct result of our handling. So we have to keep that in mind when we're working with our dog. Very, very important. But like I said, it's a common question that we get is, why is he not performing the way he should? And people trying to rush to the end. My advice to people is to take your time, put in the effort, enjoy your dog, enjoy the experience. Have fun. I mean, at the end of the day, we look at it as constructive play. We incorporate toys and food and all this other fun stuff into the training to make the experience enjoyable for the dog. I mean, they're with us for a short time, so why don't we put in the effort? And it will pay off in big dividends. Trying to shortcut it, it can't work. And we've seen people do that with some of the training tools. We've seen that with the e-collars, and you have to be careful when we work with certain collars, because that can create other problems if we're not using them correctly. And so ultimately, we have to follow the direction of our instructor and make sure that when we're working with the dog, we're putting in ample time. And when I say ample time, literally each session could be no more than 5-10 minutes, but it's the frequency of the session. So I usually suggest if your lifestyle would allow you 3 sessions a day, maybe 5-10 minutes a piece, that would be more than adequate. You don't have to do half an hour or an hour. At our training facility, we do half an hour because we have to coach both the dog and the handler. But we usually suggest to them when they get home, maximum 15 minutes of training. Other than that, we like to keep it short and sweet. You'll find that the dog is able to process the information a lot faster and retain it a lot better too when it's a shorter session and more frequent in the way of the sessions. And remember, minimum 21 days to form a habit. It doesn't come right away, so you have to be patient. Patience is something that I find many of us lack, especially when we're dealing with dogs. We've seen it where, you know, the handler will say, well, we taught him sit. He knows what it means. I don't understand why he's not doing it when we get into a high traffic area or when we're near the dog park. All of a sudden he acts like he has no obedience. Well, that comes back to what we call proofing. Because in the way of training dogs, we follow the formula of the learning phase, the correction phase, and the proofing phase. So in order to have your dog at that level where he or she will execute the behavior amidst distraction, you've got to be fair to him. You've got to actually train in those environments. We can't train once in a while. And the way I see it is you're progressing from kindergarten to grade 1, 2, 3, to eventually high school and university. And with each upgrade, it becomes challenging. But that's the beauty of training. Every time you overcome one level of distraction, your dog has become that much stronger in obedience. But that can only come through a regiment of consistent training, daily training. And like I said, your sessions are short. And I usually say to people, because some people say, well, I don't have that much time. Well, you probably have time to feed your dog, brush your dog or groom your dog, take him for a walk, play with him in the backyard. That's already 4 times of interaction with your dog. That's the best time to do your training. So it's nothing extra. You're just working it into his daily routine, and you'll see it pays off in big dividends. And like I said, once the dog has mastered one environment, it's very important that we seek out a new location and challenge him. Different location with different sounds, smells, sights, animal distractions. So sometimes we will work the dog outside the perimeter of a dog park, so not necessarily within the park, but on the outskirts of the park, where he can hear and see the other dogs. That's a big distraction. We'll go by a busy roadway, high traffic situation, obviously on leash, down the sidewalk, and getting him or her to work amidst the sounds of cars, buses, loud trucks, or even the approach of a stranger, and teaching your dog discretion. Many dogs are very social and want to go and meet people. So we teach our dogs when we're going down the sidewalk for a walk and we have a stranger approach us, we stop, we have the dog sit, the person will approach. Many people like to touch the dog, so we'll say, okay, well, let me put him in a sit first. He's in training, and then I'll tell him okay, and then you let him go, and that's his reward. Get patted or even a treat from that person. But this is all obedience, this is all proofing, and this takes time. There's no way we can shortcut. We have to put in the time to eventually reap the rewards of training. And that applies to anything that we learn, whether you're dog training, you're learning to drive a car, ride a motorcycle. Everything is about the time input. Without it, the job is only half done. So in conclusion, what it comes down to is remembering that you're working with a dog. It's a different species of animal. They don't necessarily understand the human language. They learn through tone, body language, physical contact. And all these things take time, whether you're in the learning phase of training or the correction phase or the proofing phase. Each phase takes time. And the beauty of training is the more time you put in the beginning, the less time you have to put in later on. But keep in mind, the dog is still an opportunist. So just because my dog knows sit doesn't necessarily mean he's gonna sit. And that's where the consistency and the regularity in regards to the training comes into play. And why the the whole idea of shortcutting doesn't work. So if anything, you take that to bed with you and have fun with your training. Make it not just about obligation, but also motivation. If you enjoyed the video that you saw today, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Please hit that subscribe button on your screen. And until next time, take care, folks.